The Ingham County Sheriff's Office has released the names of the two Michigan Department of Transportation workers who were killed in an accident on Highway US-127 yesterday. They are 51-year-old Bruce Wagner and 49-year-old Steve Spennel, both from Mason.
The Michigan State Employee Association is calling on the state to honor those killed by revising safety protocol and erecting better signage to protect all workers on the roads. News 10's Bobby Cushing joins us live from US-127 with more. Bobby?
Yeah, good evening, Ann and David. And after a driver lost control and struck two of those workers who were working, the union says they want to make sure they're doing everything possible to make sure their workers are staying as safe as possible. But they tell me when they brought some of their concerns to the Department of Transportation, they weren't met with the same sense of urgency. Two Michigan Department of Transportation workers died after a driver lost control of their SUV on US-127 Tuesday afternoon. Eric Bailey with the Michigan State Employees Association says the department needs to focus more on safety. He says MDOT has been doing rolling closures instead of closing down traffic lanes. This requires more staff and allows cars to drive behind workers on the road.
And they don't have enough staff out there to be able to conduct those type of rolling closures. So instead, they're using the limited staffing that they do to do the bare minimum to get the work done.
Bailey also mentioned improved signage and increased training as something he would like to see. Jacob Van Sickle, president of the association and a department worker, says their calls for change haven't been met with the urgency they hoped.
We're not trying to make a talking point out of a tragedy here, but I would have gladly liked to have addressed these situations before something like this had happened.
And Lieutenant Renee Gonzalez with the Michigan State Police says work zone crashes have become too common, with more than 6,000 occurring in 2024.
So hopefully that our courts are going to start really initiating that and really making people pay for the injuries they're causing these workers, or sometimes killing them.
Now, we have reached out to the Michigan Department of Transportation for comment and for further clarification about the claims that the union is making, but we have not been provided an answer. Live in Holt, Bobby Cushing, News 10.
All right, Bobby, thank you. The Ingham County Sheriff's Office says speed did play a role in the crash, but the investigation is in its preliminary stages. Make sure to follow along on air and online as we bring you the very latest information at news10lansing.com.